Kita wiped the sweat from his forehead as he looked at the broken quantum engine in front of him. The other mechanics at New Seoul Space Station had said it couldn't be fixed. They were wrong. They were always wrong about these things. His small repair shop, tucked away in the station's lower levels, was filled with the soft hum of diagnostic tools and the clicking of metal parts. The air smelled of engine oil and hot metal. Broken machines of all kinds lined the walls. Things other people had given up on. The door chime rang. Kita didn't look up from his work. Shops closed for special repairs. He called out, his hand steady as he adjusted a microscopic power coupling. Even for the Galactic Council? A soft voice asked. That made him look up. A tall figure stood in the doorway, wearing the silver and blue robes of a council representative. Behind them stood two more aliens in the same formal dress. Kita set down his tools carefully. The council doesn't usually come to the lower levels, he said. Must be something important. The lead representative stepped forward. I am Newell, she said, bowing slightly. Her silvery skin caught the workshop's harsh lights. We've heard about your skills, Mechanic Kita. They say you can fix anything. Almost anything, Kita corrected her. He gestured at the quantum engine. Still working on the impossible stuff. Newell smiled. Then we've come to the right place. We need someone who isn't afraid of impossible things. She reached into her robes and pulled out a small hologram projector. With a wave of her hand, an image appeared in the air between them. It showed something that looked like an ancient water fountain, but made of a metal Kita had never seen before. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing with a faint blue light. This is the spout of Juvenile, Newell said. It's been broken for over 10,000 years. Kita walked around the hologram, studying it from all angles. Never seen anything like it. What's it supposed to do? Legends say it granted eternal youth to its users, one of the other representatives said. But that's not important. What's important is that the council needs it repaired. Kita noticed how they avoided explaining more. He also noticed how their hands kept twitching toward the device's image, like they couldn't help themselves. Interesting. Why bring it to a human? He asked. Surely the council has better mechanics than me. We've tried our best engineers, Newell said. Her voice grew quieter. 3 of them died trying to repair it. 2 more went mad. The last one. She stopped and shook her head. And you think I'll have better luck? Kita asked. We think you're different, Newell said. You have a gift. You understand machines in a way others don't. And more importantly, you're human. What's being human got to do with it? Humans are. Newell seemed to search for the right word. Adaptable. You see problems differently. You find solutions where others see only walls. Kita turned back to his quantum engine. Sounds dangerous, he said. And expensive. The council will pay you well, Newell said quickly. Too quickly. Name your price. Kita picked up his tools again, thinking. Something about this wasn't right. The council representatives were too eager, too nervous. And that device, there was something about its design that bothered him. But his hands were already itching to work on it. A 10,000-year-old machine that no one could fix. That was exactly the kind of challenge he lived for. When do you need it done? He asked. As soon as possible, Newell said. The device will arrive tomorrow. We've prepared a special workshop in the upper levels. Kita nodded slowly. I'll need my own tools and complete access to the station's technical database. Done, Newell said. Anything else? Yeah. Kita looked her in the eye. The truth about what this thing really does. Newell's smile flickered for just a moment. All in good time, Mechanic Kita. All in good time. After they left, Kita sat looking at his quantum engine. The impossible repair suddenly seemed simple compared to what he'd just agreed to. But that's what humans did best, wasn't it? They took on the impossible things. He smiled to himself and got back to work. Tomorrow would be interesting. Kita couldn't sleep that night. He kept seeing the strange symbols from the spout in his mind, glowing that odd blue color. At 4 in the morning, station time, he gave up and headed to the main repair bay. The night shift was quiet, with only a few mechanics working on routine jobs. In the corner, he spotted Jai-ho, the oldest mechanic on the station. The old man was fixing a cleaning robot, his wrinkled hands moving with practiced ease. "You're up early," Jai-ho said without looking up. His voice was rough from years of breathing machine oil. Kita sat down next to him. "Heard anything about a device called the spout of Juvenile?" Jai-ho's hands stopped moving. The cleaning robot made a sad beeping noise. "Where did you hear that name?" he asked quietly. "The council wants me to fix it. Coming in today." Jai-ho put down his tools and looked around carefully. The other mechanics were far away, focused on their own work. "Listen carefully," he said. "That thing isn't just broken. It's wrong." "Wrong how?" "I was here 30 years ago, when they brought it to the station the first time. Back then, they got an Axis engineer to work on it. Best in the galaxy, they said." Jai-ho's eyes grew distant. He opened up the main panel, and something happened. They found him 3 days later, locked in his room. He kept saying he was someone else, someone from long ago. Kita frowned. The council representative mentioned others who tried to fix it, said some died. "Oh, they died all right." Jai-ho picked up a spare part and turned it over in his hands. "But not from accidents. They killed themselves, left notes saying they couldn't live with what they'd learned." A cold feeling settled in Kita's stomach. What did they learn? "Don't know. The council took all their notes. Sealed the records." Jai-ho looked at Kita directly. "But I saw the Axis engineer before they took him away." His eyes were different, like someone else was looking out through them. The station's morning shift alarm sounded, making them both jump. The lights brightened slowly, simulating dawn. More workers began arriving. "Be careful with the council, too," Jai-ho added. "Especially Councilor Do-young. There's something not right about that one." Do-young. Haven't met them yet. You will. Always shows up when the spout is involved. Watches everything, asks lots of questions. Jai-ho shook his head. And those eyes. They're too old for his face. Their conversation was interrupted by a station-wide announcement. "Attention all personnel. Power fluctuations expected in sectors 7 through 12 due to special equipment installation. Please save all work and switch to backup systems." Kita stood up. That would be the spout arriving. But before he could leave, Jai-ho grabbed his arm. "One more thing," the old mechanic said. "When they brought the spout in last time, all our systems started acting strange. Computers showing impossible numbers, tools turning on by themselves, like the whole station was going crazy. As if on cue, the lights around them flickered. The cleaning robot Jai-ho had been fixing suddenly sparked to life, its wheels spinning at full speed. It shot across the floor and crashed into a wall. "See what I mean?" Jai-ho said. "It's starting already." Kita helped him retrieve the robot. As they picked it up, he noticed its display showing random symbols, symbols that looked eerily similar to the ones on the spout. His communicator beeped. A message from Hainul. "Workshop ready. Please report to upper level 3, section A. They're waiting for me," Kita said. Jai-ho nodded slowly. "Remember what I said." And Kita. He pulled something from his pocket. An old-fashioned data chip. "If anything strange happens, upload your notes to this. It's not connected to the station's network. They can't track it." Kita took the chip, slipping it into his work vest. "Thanks for the warning." As he headed for the upper levels, the lights kept flickering. Each time they dimmed, he thought he saw strange shadows moving in the corners. But when he looked directly at them, they were gone. In the elevator, his tools started vibrating in their case. The metal seemed to hum with an energy he'd never felt before. Whatever this spout was, it was already affecting the station. The elevator doors opened to upper level 3. 2 security guards waited for him. Behind them stood a tall figure in council robes, watching him with unnaturally bright eyes. "Welcome, Mechanic Kita," the figure said. "I am Counselor Du Young. We have much to discuss." Kita didn't like the way Counselor Du Young watched him. Those bright eyes never blinked, following his every move as he examined the spout of Juvenile. The device sat in the center of the specially prepared workshop, looking both beautiful and wrong at the same time. "I need to run some scans," Kita said, pulling out his diagnostic tools. "And I'll need access to the station's historical database." "Of course," Du Young said smoothly, "though I doubt you'll find anything useful there. The spout is unique." A soft knock at the door made them both turn. A young woman in a station tech uniform stood there, tablet in hand. "Sorry to interrupt," she said. "I'm Jin from AI Systems. We're getting some strange readings up here." Before Du Young could object, Kita waved her in. "Show me." Jin brought up a display of the station's power grid. Strange pulses of energy moved through it, all centered around the workshop. "It's affecting our AI cores," she said. "They're picking up data patterns they can't process. Almost like..." "Like what?" Du Young asked sharply. "Like old memories," Jin said. "Really old ones." Kaita watched Du Young's reaction carefully. The counselor's face stayed calm, but his hands twitched slightly. "Thank you for reporting this," Du Young said. "You may go now." But Kita had other ideas. "Actually, I need her help. If this thing is affecting station systems, I need someone who understands them." Du Young stared at him for a long moment. "Very well," he said finally. "But remember, time is limited." He left the room, his robe swishing softly. As soon as the door closed, Jin spoke quickly. "There's something else. The AI cores are translating some of those patterns. They're not just memories. They're consciousness signatures." Kaita looked at the spout. "What do you mean?" "Every person's brain has a unique pattern, like a fingerprint. Our medical eyes recognize them. And these patterns," she showed him another display. "They're complete consciousness patterns. Thousands of them." Keita remembered what Jaiho had said about the Axis engineer who claimed to be someone else. "Can you access the station's old records?" "From the last time this thing was here." Jin's fingers flew over her tablet. "Most are deleted, but the AI cores keep backup fragments. Give me a minute." While she worked, Keita started his scans of the spout. The symbols on its surface seemed to shift when he wasn't looking directly at them. His diagnostic tools showed impossible readings, energy patterns that shouldn't exist. "Found something," Jin said. 30 years ago. They didn't bring the spout here for repairs. They'd brought it here to use it. Use it how? The records are damaged, but..." She frowned at her screen. "There's mention of a transfer ceremony. And after that, 20 station crew members disappeared. Just vanished. No bodies ever found." Keita thought about the council's desperation to get the spout working again. "It's not a fountain of youth," he said slowly. "It's a transfer device. It doesn't make people young. It lets them take over young bodies." "Exactly." Jin showed him more data. "And look at this. Every time the spout appears in history, there's a pattern. Missing people, changed people, and always members of the council nearby." Keita picked up his heaviest wrench, feeling its solid weight. "We need to know more. Can you get into the council's private database?" "Already trying. But there's something strange." She pointed to her screen. "Someone else is in there too, searching the same files. Someone using Counselor Du Young's access codes." The lights flickered again. In the corner of the room, a shadow moved by itself. "We're not alone," Keita said quietly. "Can you copy everything you found to a secure location?" Jin nodded. "Done. I've got a private server that's..." The door slid open. Newell stood there, with Du Young right behind her. "How is the examination progressing?" she asked. Kita moved slightly, blocking their view of Yujin's tablet. "Just getting started. Lots of unusual readings to sort through. Perhaps we can help explain them," Du Young said, those bright eyes fixed on Yujin. "After all, we know so much about the spouts. History." The way he said history made Kita's skin crawl. He needed time. Time to understand what they discovered, time to figure out what to do about it. "Give me 12 hours, he said. "I need to run complete diagnostics before I start any repairs." Hainul and Du Young exchanged looks. "Very well," Hainul said finally. 12 hours, but no more." After they left, Yujin whispered, "What do we do now?" Keita looked at the spout, its symbol still shifting in the corner of his eye. "Now," he said, "we find out what really happened to those missing people, and we make sure it doesn't happen again." Keita and Yujin worked quickly in the dim light of the workshop's night cycle. They had less than 8 hours left before the council would return for their progress report. The spout sat in the center of the room, its symbols casting faint blue shadows on the walls. "I found something in the old maintenance logs," Yujin said, showing Kita her tablet. "Station engineer He reported strange tool malfunctions 30 years ago, right before the disappearances." As if hearing its name, one of Kita's wrenches suddenly flew off his workbench, sticking to the spout's surface with a loud clang. Kita walked over and tried to pull it off. It wouldn't budge. "It's not magnetic," he said, frowning. "This is something else." The workshop door slid open, making them both jump. A short man in an engineer's uniform stepped in, looking nervous. "I heard you asking about the old incidents," he said. "I'm Tahi, the one from the logs." Keita and Yujin shared a look. "The same Tahi from 30 years ago?" Yujin asked. "You look too young." Tahi smiled sadly. "I know. That's part of why I'm here. I need to warn you about what they're really planning." Keita gestured to a chair. "Tell us everything." Tahi sat down, his hands shaking slightly. 30 years ago, I was much older, near retirement. Then the council offered selected staff a chance at what they called renewal. They said the spout was a medical device, a way to restore youth. "But that's not what it did," Yujin said. "No." Tahi looked at the spout with fear in his eyes. "It transferred our minds into younger bodies, bodies of station crew who had volunteered. But they hadn't volunteered. They were chosen, taken." Keita thought about Du Young's unnaturally bright eyes. "And the council members. Most of them aren't who they appear to be," Tahi said. "They're ancient beings, moving from body to body through the centuries. But the transfers are failing now. The bodies are rejecting them. They need the spout working again." The wrench stuck to the spout suddenly vibrated, giving off a high-pitched whine. More tools began lifting off the workbench. "It's getting stronger," Yujin said, checking her tablet. "The energy readings are off the charts." Keita caught a floating screwdriver in midair. "We need to stop them. But first, we need to understand exactly how this thing works." He turned to Tahi. "You've seen it in operation. What can you tell us?" Before Tahi could answer, heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. "Security patrol," he whispered. "They're watching this section closely." Keita quickly opened a maintenance panel in the wall. "In here," he said. "Quick." They squeezed into the narrow space just as the workshop door opened. Through the thin gap, they saw 2 guards and a familiar figure in council robes. "The energy spikes are growing," Du Young said, running his hand along the spout's surface. "Soon it will be ready." "Has Security Chief Min Su prepared the list?" "Yes, Counselor," one guard said. 20 young crew members, all in perfect health. They'll be brought here tomorrow for the special medical screening." "Good. This body is failing faster than expected. I need the transfer completed within." Du Young suddenly stopped, staring at the wrench stuck to the spout. Someone has been testing it. The guards raised their weapons, scanning the room. Kita held his breath. Beside him, Yu-Jin's tablet screen glowed faintly. She quickly covered it with her hand. After what felt like hours, Du-Young spoke again. No matter. By this time tomorrow, we'll have fresh vessels. Strong, young bodies. Set up a security perimeter. No one enters without my direct approval. After they left, Kita and the others waited several minutes before emerging from their hiding place. His mind was racing with what they'd learned. We have to warn those crew members, Yu-Jin said. No time, Kita replied. They'll be watching everyone we talk to. We need another plan. He looked at the spout, at his tools scattered around it. I'm going to fix it, but not the way they expect. What do you mean? Tahi asked. Kita picked up a fallen plasma cutter. Every machine has a weakness, a point where it can be made to look fixed, but actually fail at the right moment. We just have to find it. And if we can't? Yu-Jin asked. Kita's face hardened. Then I'll have to break it so completely that no one will ever use it again, no matter what it costs. Morning came too quickly. Kita stood before the spout, his modified tools laid out carefully on the workbench. The workshop was crowded now. Council members lined the walls, their bright eyes all fixed on him. Du-Young stood closest, practically breathing down his neck. You understand the importance of this task, Du-Young said. It wasn't a question. Kita nodded, keeping his face neutral. In his pocket, he felt the weight of Jaiho's data chip. Hidden inside his toolbox, a small device Yu-Jin had built would record everything that happened next. I'll need quiet to concentrate, Kita said, and space to work. The council members stepped back, but only slightly. Hae-Nul raised her hand, and a large holographic timer appeared in the air. You have 1 hour, she said. Keita picked up his first tool, a modified scanner that would let him see past the spout's outer shell. As soon as he turned it on, the device's symbols began glowing brighter. A low hum filled the room. The scanner screen showed something impossible, layers upon layers of technology, some of it moving like it was alive. At the center, he saw what looked like thousands of thin threads of light, all tangled together. Those are the consciousness patterns Yu-Jin had told him earlier. Each thread is someone they took. Kita's hands moved steadily despite the weight of what he was seeing. He found the main access panel, hidden so well that it looked like part of the decoration. With careful movements, he began to work it loose. The panel suddenly sparked, sending a shock through his hands. Kita didn't flinch. He'd expected this. The spout was fighting back. Careful, Du-Young said softly. The device can be protective. Kita ignored him, focusing entirely on his work. The panel came loose, revealing the spout's inner workings. More symbols covered everything inside, pulsing with that strange blue light. Time seemed to slow down. Kita's world narrowed to just his hands and the machine. This was what he was best at, understanding how things worked, seeing the patterns, finding the solutions that others missed. He began identifying the key systems, power distribution here, control mechanisms there, and at the heart of it all, the transfer system itself, beautiful and horrible at the same time. The room's lights flickered wildly now. On Yu-Jin's monitors in the station's AI center, energy readings were going crazy. The spout was waking up. 14 minutes. That's all he would need. Keita reached deep into the spout's core with his specialized tools. Each movement was precise, calculated. To everyone watching, it looked like a perfect repair job. But inside the machine, he was doing something else. Something that would look like success at first, but would turn into catastrophic failure at exactly the right moment. Strange images flashed through his mind as he worked, memories that weren't his own. He saw ancient cities on distant worlds, saw the first time the spout was used, how its creators had stolen young bodies to escape death, saw centuries of theft and suffering, all hidden behind the Council's lies. 10 minutes remaining, Haynul announced. Kita's hands were moving faster now, but still perfectly steady. Sweat ran down his face. The air in the room felt thick, like it was full of static electricity. He could feel Du Young's eagerness, the council member's body literally trembling with anticipation. They thought they were about to get everything they wanted. 5 minutes. The spout's hum grew louder. Tools that weren't in use began floating around the room. Several council members stepped back nervously. Kaita made his final adjustments. To their eyes, he was connecting the last power couplings, bringing the ancient device back to life. In reality, he was setting up its destruction. 1 minute. He closed the access panel. The symbols on the spout's surface were blazing now, so bright they hurt to look at. The device vibrated with power. "It's done," Kita said, stepping back. His hands were steady. His voice was calm. Du Young rushed forward, reaching for the spout's control surface. "At last," he whispered. "At last we can." 14 minutes, Kita said quietly. Du Young turned to look at him. "What? That's all it took? 14 minutes to fix your legendary device?" Kita smiled, but there was no warmth in it. And now, the spout made a sound like a crystal bell ringing. Power surged through it. Du Young's face lit up with triumph. But Kita wasn't finished speaking. "And now," he said, "we find out what else I did in those 14 minutes." The spout's power built up like a storm about to break. Blue light filled the workshop, making everything look like it was underwater. Du Young stood before the device, his hands hovering over its control surface. "Finally," he whispered, "after all these centuries." But something was wrong. The light from the spout wasn't staying steady. It pulsed and flickered, creating strange shadows on the walls. And with each pulse, Du Young's appearance seemed to change. Kaita watched as the council member's face shifted. For brief moments, other faces showed through, dozens of them, one after another. Old faces, young faces, faces that weren't even human. "What's happening?" Haynul demanded. Her own face was starting to flicker too. "The truth," Kita said calmly. "The spout isn't just showing us its power anymore. It's showing us your history." The device's hum changed to a high-pitched whine. Suddenly, the air filled with floating images, like holograms, but clearer. They showed scenes from the past, playing out all around them. A young scientist discovering the spout on a dead world. The first transfer ceremony, where the original council members stole their first new bodies. Centuries of secrets and lies, as they moved from body to body, keeping their power. "You're not really council members," Kita said. "You're parasites. Body thieves." Du Young turned to face him, and now his true nature showed clearly. The human face was just a mask over something ancient and hungry. "We are survivors," he snarled. "We are eternal." "You're murderers," Kita corrected him. "Each new body you took was a person, someone with a life, a family, a future. And you stole it all." Around them, more council members were losing control of their appearances. Some looked terrified. Others looked angry. But Du Young just laughed. "And what do you think you can do about it, little mechanic? The device is working now. We have our list of new vessels. Your job is done." Kita's communicator beeped, the signal from Eugene. In the station's AI center, she had just finished her part of the plan. Security Chief Min Su would be receiving the proof they'd gathered, along with the names of everyone the council had planned to take. "My job," Kita smiled. "My job was to fix the spout. And I did. But you never asked what else I might do while I was working on it." The device's whine grew louder. The floating images changed, showing newer scenes, the missing station crew from 30 years ago. Their faces flashed by one after another. "What have you done?" Haynul demanded. "I woke them up," Kita said. "All of them. Every consciousness you've stored in there over the centuries. They're awake now, and they remember everything you did to them. The spout's symbols were changing color now, from blue to angry red. The stolen consciousness patterns inside it were breaking free from their storage cells. Do Young rushed back to the control panel. No, they're meant to stay dormant. They're just spare parts, nothing more. They're people, Kita said, and they want justice. Suddenly, thousands of voices filled the air, whispers and screams and accusations, all speaking at once. The council members clutched their heads in pain as their stolen bodies began to reject them. You can't do this, Du Young shouted. His face was shifting faster now, showing glimpses of his original form, something ancient and inhuman. We earned our immortality. We deserve to live. But not by killing others, Kita said. He reached for the main power coupling he had modified. And now it's time to end it. Stop him, Du Young ordered, but the other council members could barely stand. Their stolen bodies were fighting back, trying to force out the ancient minds that had taken them. Kita's hand closed around the power coupling. One quick move would trigger the overload he had built into it. The spout would be destroyed, and the council's centuries of body theft would end. But Du Young wasn't finished. His form fully changed now, showing what he really was, a being of pure energy held together by stolen life force. He reached for Kita with hands that crackled with deadly power. If we die, he growled in a voice that was no longer human, you die first. Kita stood his ground. Behind him, the workshop door slid open. Help was coming, but would it arrive in time? The workshop door burst open as Security Chief Min Su rushed in with a team of armed officers. But they stopped short at the strange sight before them. Du Young's energy form crackled with power as he held Kita by the throat, lifting him off the ground. Drop him, Min Su ordered, raising her weapon. Now. You don't give orders to us, Du Young's otherworldly voice boomed. We have ruled for thousands of years. Kita struggled to speak, his hands working on something behind his back. The power coupling. Yujin's voice came through the station speakers. Kita, the station's power grid is becoming unstable. Whatever you're going to do it fast. Do Young laughed, the sound like breaking glass. Your human weapons can't harm me. Not in this form. Not when I'm so close to. He never finished. Kita had managed to reach the modified power coupling. With the last of his strength, he yanked it loose. The effect was instant. The spout's red glow turned blindingly bright. Energy surged through the room, knocking everyone back. Du Young screamed as his energy form wavered. What have you done? He shrieked. Kita fell to the floor, gasping for air. Changed. The power flow, he wheezed. Instead of letting you steal life force, it's draining it from you. Around the room, the other council members were changing. Their stolen bodies glowed as the ancient consciousnesses were pulled out of them, drawn into the spout's swirling energy field. Min Su, Yujin's voice came through again. I'm getting life signs from the victims, the real owners of those bodies. They're waking up. Do Young's form flickered violently. No, we won't go back. We won't. But the spout's pull was too strong. One by one, the ancient beings were torn from their stolen bodies. The real people inside began to wake up, looking around in confusion. Get them out of here, Kita shouted to Min Su. The spout's going to overload soon. The security team rushed forward, helping the dazed victims to their feet. Most couldn't walk on their own, weak from years of being trapped in their own bodies. You don't understand what you're destroying. Du Young's voice was weaker now, his form barely visible. All our knowledge, our power. Knowledge built on murder, Kita said, standing up. Power stolen from innocent people. It ends today. The spout's whine had reached a painful pitch. Sparks flew from its surface. The thousands of consciousnesses it had stored over the centuries were breaking free, their combined energy tearing the device apart from the inside. Everyone out. Min Su ordered. The whole section is becoming unstable. But Kita didn't move. Someone has to make sure it's completely destroyed. No one can ever use it again. Then I'll stay too, a voice said. Tahi stepped out from behind the security team. I owe it to the others, to all of us they hurt. No, Kita said firmly. You just got your life back. Live it. Station alarms were blaring now. The walls themselves seemed to pulse with the spout's energy. Du Young made one last attempt to reach the device, but his form was almost gone. 14 minutes, Kita said, looking at the ancient being. That's how long it took to end your 1,000-year empire. Du Young's last scream was lost in the sound of the spout's final surge. Energy exploded outward, but Kita was ready. He activated the containment field he had built into his repairs, forcing the blast inward. The spout collapsed in on itself, taking the last traces of Du Young and the other ancient beings with it. In seconds, all that remained was a small, twisted piece of metal on the floor. The room was suddenly quiet. The stolen consciousness patterns were gone. The ancient beings were no more. And the spout of Juvenile, after thousands of years of causing pain and suffering, was finally destroyed. Kita picked up the twisted metal piece and put it in his pocket. A reminder of what people would do to live forever, and what it cost to stop them. Kita. Yu Jin's voice came through one more time. The station's systems are returning to normal. The victims, they're all going to make it. He smiled, feeling tired but satisfied. Sometimes the best repair job meant making sure something could never be fixed again. Behind him, Min Su approached carefully. The council will want answers about what happened here. Good, Kita said, because I have 14 minutes worth of truth to tell them. 3 days after the spout's destruction, Kita stood before the real Galactic Council. These weren't the ancient beings who had stolen bodies for centuries. These were the true representatives of different worlds, gathered to hear the truth about what had happened on New Seoul Space Station. The council chamber was huge, with rows of seats rising up like a stadium. Hundreds of beings from different species watched as Kita placed the twisted piece of the spout on the display table in front of him. This is all that's left of it, he said. His voice was steady. The rest was destroyed in the containment field. The head counselor, a tall being with silver scales, leaned forward. And you're certain all the ancient ones were destroyed with it? Yes, Kita said. Their energy forms were pulled into the spout when it collapsed. There's nothing left of them now. Yu Jin stood next to him, holding her tablet. We have proof of everything, she said. The data recordings show how they stole bodies, how they kept themselves alive for thousands of years by taking other people's lives. On large screens around the chamber, images began to play. They showed the truth about the fake council members, their centuries of deception, and their final moments, as Kita's modified spout pulled them from their stolen bodies. 47 victims have been recovered, Security Chief Min Su reported from her position near the door. All of them are alive, though many are still weak. They remember everything that happened while they were trapped in their own bodies. A murmur ran through the chamber. Many council members looked sick at what they were hearing. Others looked angry. And you did all this, the head counselor said to Kita, in just 14 minutes of work on the spout. The repairs took 14 minutes, Kita corrected, but understanding what needed to be done. That took help. He nodded to Yu Jin, Min Su, and Tahi, who stood with the other survivors. We all played a part in ending this. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. The screens showing the evidence flickered and went dark. We have an emergency, a guard shouted. Something's trying to access the station's power grid. Kita's heart sank. He knew what this meant. They weren't all destroyed, he said quietly. The lights dimmed, and a familiar voice filled the air. Du Young's voice, but weaker than before. Did you think it would be that easy? The voice hissed. We have lived for thousands of years. We have backup plans within backup plans. Yujin's fingers flew across her tablet. He's right. Some of them uploaded copies of themselves into the station's computer core before the spout was destroyed. They're trying to take control of everything. The chamber's doors slammed shut. The air circulation systems stopped. On every screen, Du Young's energy form appeared, flickering and unstable but still dangerous. "If we can't have bodies," he growled, "we'll take your whole station. Every system, every computer, every bit of power. We'll live forever in the machines." But Kita smiled. "I was hoping you'd try this." He looked at Yujin and nodded. She pressed a button on her tablet, and suddenly all the screens changed. Now they showed lines of code, the program she had hidden in the station's systems 3 days ago. "What is this?" Du Young's voice wavered. "The same thing I did to the spout," Kita said. "But this time, it's in every computer on the station. You're not downloading yourselves into the systems. You're downloading yourselves into a trap." The screens flickered faster. Du Young screamed as his digital form began to break apart. "No, not again." 14 minutes to repair, Kita said. 14 minutes to destroy. And now 14 minutes to make sure you never come back. Around the chamber, the lights returned to normal as Du Young's voice faded away. The last traces of the ancient beings were erased from the station's computers, their backup plans failing just like their original ones. The head counselor stood up. "It seems we owe you a great debt, Mechanic Kita. You have ended a threat that existed for thousands of years." Keita shook his head. "I just fixed what was broken, both the machine and the truth." He picked up the twisted piece of the spout. "The real question is, what happens now?" The head counselor looked at the recovered victims, then back at Kita. "Now we begin to heal, and we make sure nothing like this ever happens again." But Kita knew it wasn't over yet. There was still one more thing to do, one final task to make sure the truth was never forgotten. 1 month after the destruction of the spout, Kita sat in his workshop, looking at the twisted piece of metal that had once been part of the ancient device. The station had changed a lot since that day. New security systems were in place, new rules about body transfer technology, new hope for the future. Still keeping that as a reminder? Yujin asked, walking into the workshop with 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Kita. "Someone should remember," he said, taking a sip, "so it doesn't happen again." The workshop door opened again. Tahi came in, looking younger than his real age but happier than before. Behind him was Security Chief Minsu, carrying a data pad. "The last of the victims are fully recovered," Minsu reported. "They're starting their new lives. Some are staying on the station. Others are going home to families they haven't seen in years." Keita nodded. "And the council? They're rewriting all the laws about consciousness transfer," Yujin said, checking her tablet. "It's completely banned now. Too dangerous. Too easy to abuse." Tahi sat down heavily in a chair. "Hard to believe it's really over. All those years of being trapped in a borrowed body, watching them use the spout to hurt people." "It's over," Kite assured him. "The device is destroyed. The ancient ones are gone. Their backup plans failed. Now we just have to make sure everyone knows the truth." Minsu held up her data pad. "That's why we're here. The council wants to seal all the records, classify everything about what happened. They say people aren't ready to know." "Of course they do," Kita said, standing up. He walked to his workbench and opened a drawer. Inside was Jaiho's old data chip. "Good thing we kept our own records." Yujin smiled. "I've already uploaded copies to every major news network in the galaxy. The story is spreading. Everyone will know what happened here." "Not just what happened," Kita said, "but how it happened. That it only took 14 minutes to end thousands of years of evil. That sometimes the simplest solutions are the best ones." The station's lights flickered briefly, but this time it was just a normal power fluctuation. No more ancient beings hiding in the systems. No more stolen bodies walking the corridors. The station felt clean again. "What will you do now?" Min Su asked Kita. "The council offered you a position as their head of technology safety." Keita looked around his workshop, at the broken machines waiting to be fixed, at the tools he had used to destroy the most dangerous device in history, at his friends who had helped him do what needed to be done. "I'm staying right here," he said. "This is where I belong. Fixing things that are really broken, not things that were never meant to work in the first place." Tahi laughed. "Plus, someone needs to keep an eye on things. Make sure no one tries to build another spout." "They won't," Yujin said firmly. "I've designed new scanning systems. Anything with that kind of technology will be detected immediately. No more hidden ancient devices." Keita picked up the twisted piece of the spout one last time. Then he placed it in a small clear box with a label that read, "Some things should stay broken." The station's morning shift alarm sounded, just like it had on the day this all started. But now it felt different. Cleaner, safer, the start of something new. "You know what the funny thing is," Kita said, looking at his friends. "Those ancient beings lived for thousands of years, stealing time from others, and in the end it only took 14 minutes to stop them." "Not 14 minutes," Yujin corrected him. "It took courage, and friendship, and doing what was right even when it was hard." Min Su raised her coffee cup. "To 14 minutes that changed the galaxy." They all raised their cups together. Outside the workshop window, ships came and went from the station. New people arrived, bringing new machines that needed fixing. Life went on. But now it was real life, lived in real bodies, with real consequences and real hope. No more stolen years. No more ancient beings playing with people's lives. Kita turned back to his workbench. There were machines waiting to be fixed. Real machines, with real problems that needed real solutions. "Time to get back to work," he said, picking up his tools. "These things won't fix themselves." And in the end, that's what mattered most. Not the grand events or the galaxy-changing moments, but the simple act of doing what you were meant to do. Of fixing what was truly broken and knowing when to leave broken the things that should never have existed at all.